Recording.
Welcome to the Utilities Commission of New Canaan. This is a regular meeting scheduled for June 18th, and we're starting at 7 o'clock. Why don't we start out with the attendance, see where we're at on that.
Okay, Hiram Cantu. Here. Mike Collins. No. Bernard Clark. Here. Sven England here. Jill Gazzetti. She's gonna be a no,
You're
right?
gonna be a no.
Janae Hunter. Krista Kennan.
Yeah.
Kareem Kerr. And Rich Townsend.
Here,
Let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Quorum.
we have a quorum. Oh, that's terrific. That is terrific. Well, why don't we, let's move on to the second thing on the agenda, which is the minutes. And it's the minutes that we're going to be reviewing for the meeting held May 21st, 2024. I guess the proper order here is to get somebody to make the motion, and then we can discuss them, right?
Yeah, sure. I'll make a motion then.
Okay, do we have a second?
Sure.
Okay, Krista. Okay, let's have the discussion. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes? Or changes they would like to see made to the minutes that have not already been made?
No.
No? 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 No?
I don't
No?
think I reviewed them, honestly.
I did, so Bob knows I did, so.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of work that goes into these minutes. So why don't we take a vote on it? All those in favor of approval of the minutes?
Aye.
I wasn't at the meeting, although I saw the video of it and.
I'll abstain just because I don't read the minutes.
Okay, can we do that? Can we? Yeah, sure you can abstain if you want.
What do you want me to? Yeah, the vote us, so.
I think it'd be nice to have 5 votes in favor.
I think so.
Did you read the minutes?
Yes, I've seen the minutes. I just wasn't physically present. but I
That's
You
saw
don't
the
have
video.
to be physically present at the meeting to
Okay.
vote on the minutes. So, okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Here, we'll do it.
Janae,
I'm abstaining.
You're
But everyone else is approving.
All right.
okay, let's move on to item 3. We're really lucky tonight to have some representatives from Frontier Communications. Oh,
Oh.
I skipped that last time too, didn't I?
I don't know.
It's
Check
time,
the minutes.
it is time, it's time for 3, which is public comments. Members of the public are welcome to provide comments to the Utility Commission on the agenda topics scheduled for review and or vote. The comments are limited to 2 minutes. Does anyone want to make some comments? Is there anybody on the Zoom?
no one on Zoom wants to make it.
Okay, and you guys are okay? Okay, then the public has no comments at this point in time. So now let's get to what I was trying to get to a minute ago. Got derailed. We're lucky to have Frontier here. And Bernie, if you wouldn't mind introducing them, you organized this.
Perfect. And Bob, are they on and they're live and they're hearing?
They are. Joe Oresco is on.
And Tony?
Good evening.
On.
Perfect.
Welcome to the Utilities Commission.
Thank you.
And thank you both for coming. We've been trying to arrange this for a couple of months. On the Zoom with us is Joe Oresco. Well, you'll introduce yourself a little bit, but I've got the colorization that you're more on the technical side of things with Frontier. And then pinch hitting here at the end is Tony Bedarschek, who's more on the business development and business side of things. Again, you'll introduce yourself if you could give a little background. You know, the town is pretty well wired with, you know, Cablevision provisions and other things. You guys are trying to make inroads and better service here. So we're anxious to hear sort of what's been going on with Frontier over the last 4 or 5 years, what your plans are in Connecticut. It'd be great to just give some color on if somebody is a customer of yours, how do they use it? How do they get back to what they like to watch on TV or their internet or that sort of stuff? Those sorts of things would be helpful. So with that, we'll ask you.
Just if they would mention their position with the firm.
Yes, and when you introduce yourself, your position with the firm would be great for the notes. And you have some slides which you can put up when you want. So with that, and we'll break in with questions if that's okay. Go to it.
Absolutely. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Oresco. I am the Director of Construction and Engineering here in Connecticut for Frontier. I've been with this company for over 25 years now, starting out as SNET, as you all probably remember, and going on through the different acquisitions from SBC, ATT, and then Frontier. So I'm responsible for the outside plant. And what that means is really everything that you see outside of our central office in town, all the way to the curb. So poles, cables, manholes, cabinets, structures out in the right of way fall under my area of responsibility. And yeah, we're looking forward to talking to you a little bit about what we've been doing for the last few years, which is building Gigabit America. And I'll pass it over to Tony to introduce himself and talk more about that.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So my name is Tony Bednarchik. I'm a Director of Fiber Partnerships at Frontier. So here today to talk about exactly what Joe had brought up, building Gigabit America. I do have some slides, and I believe I'm sharing them. Does everyone see the slides?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll just jump right in. And of course, if you have any questions, just I'll pause and we can talk about anything. So again, Frontier, we're really committed to building Gigabit America. What we've done in the past is we've had a change of leadership and really focused on three main things: operational excellence, financial responsibility, and consumer centricity. And so what we want to focus on going forward is that fiber optic cable. That's the method that we want to provide internet to our customers. So we're not providing it through wireless or copper-based or satellite, anything like that. All we want to do going forward is really building out fiber-based internet. And so what we have actually by 2025 is we have a goal of reaching 10 million fiber locations. We're well on our way across our footprint through 25 states across the US. We built 322,000 locations in the last quarter, and we're on track for about 1.3 million locations in 2024. So recently, we've had a positive Q1 year-over-year growth. That's the first time since becoming a new public company over the last few years. We have $2.6 billion of liquidity, which is very important in expansion plans, making sure that we can have the cash on hand to be able to build out this infrastructure. And of course, we have no significant debt maturities before 2027. So we're less susceptible to interest rate issues that maybe others are. And of course, we're ever growing our fiber customer base by 88,000 within the first quarter. And so the last few years, we've really wanted to focus on building a Gigabit America, focusing on fiber-based internet, and really moving to that technology because it's really shown to be the most resilient, the most capable, and really the most future-proof. So a few things on that. I'm not sure if folks are aware of kind of the specific details of difference between fiber and more of a cable or a copper-based system. But in general, kind of the headline is, fiber-based internet is really the fastest medium you can get. It's the most capable, it's the most future-proof, and it's shown to be the most reliable. So much so that, our fiber service is 99.97% reliable. So what that means is about 2.5 hours per year, it will go down. The rest of the time, it'll be up and available. And so we're very proud of that. We want to focus on this technology. It has scalability. So the ability for fiber-based internet, effectively, it's a piece of glass that has light sending it through. That can be scaled up, to the bounds of physics, essentially. And so that's why we want to focus on it. There's some acronyms here that you might have questions on. I'm sure Joe can go into it a little bit if you have any things on that. Were there any questions?
Tony, I would like to just emphasize that one thing that you said there about the speeds being symmetrical, and that often gets sort of passed by on folks. You know, that is really a major standout between us and other technologies. With the fiber-based service, if you buy a gig, we don't just talk about the gig download. It's symmetrical. You get the gig upload and download. Whether it's 500 meg or 5 gig, it's symmetrical with our service. And that really, with folks doing more of these types of meetings, you know, video conferences and working from home, it really matters that you have that same bandwidth in both directions. Typically in a coaxial or other copper-based service, your upload speed is around 10% of your download. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a great point, especially, and I'll go on to the next slide, talking about a little bit of the benefits to the community, exactly the point of, you know, whenever, especially during the pandemic, whenever those students were at home, they had to learn from home. They were all on the computer, they all had laptops. You know, it became an issue across, you know, really the world to make sure that that was possible. And that upload speed being symmetrical with the download speed allows for those types of things to happen. And that really comes with the fiber-based internet. And so in addition to obviously those students becoming able to learn online, access to healthcare services. So if folks need to get into a clinic on a regular basis, instead, maybe they can reach out to their doctor from their home. If it's a little bit difficult, it gets access to those records that they have to keep track of things that they need to keep track of. Obviously, it also enhances public safety, better communication to first responders so that they can get in there and make sure people are safe, as well as obviously allowing for e-commerce and other economic activity to happen, job growth, education. It's really been shown to have a lowering of unemployment rates, and it increases property values. That gives you a stronger tax base. So fiber-based internet is really just a significant benefit to the community.
Joni, could you expound on that next gen 911?
Yeah, absolutely. So effectively, whenever you have older technology that maybe is more copper-based, signals can be less reliable. Whenever you have more of fiber-based technology, things are more reliable, it's clearer, it's faster. There's not going to be as much of a load issue. So if you have to have many calls going at once, all within a concentrated area, you want to make sure that there's going to have that capability of many people communicating with each other, rather than let's just say a system or a technology that can't handle that. You'll try to do that and maybe there'll be issues. So that's where fiber really comes into play and allows for that to enhance the capability there.
Thanks.
So one thing, you know, just focusing in on, you know, Connecticut, you know, obviously Connecticut is a major focus for us. You know, we've committed $800 million for fiber-based, you know, construction and build within Connecticut. We already have over 1 million fiber locations in the state. And just some background on, just in case you weren't aware of kind of the employment aspects and kind of how throughout the state. You know, we have over 1,600 Connecticut-based employees. We have 270 or 237 frontier facilities. So think about different buildings all across the state that are going to have those wires and connections to be able to provide internet from. Wire centers, so those are just kind of components. Think of a map, there's these red lines, if you can see, these are kind of how we break up the state into different components and how to make sure that the network is there and capable to deliver service. And of course, we're across 168 towns. So we are definitely focused on the state, we're focused on the community, and we really have made a large commitment to building out fiber-based internet.
Repeat it.
What's wrong with Greenwich? Why is it a different color?
So Greenwich is primarily served from Verizon from the New York side. The Mianus River is where sort of our delineation is. So that's why that's one area. We do cover Old Greenwich, but once you cross the Mianus Bridge, that's covered out of New York.
Okay,
What do the blue lines mean versus the red lines?
The blue is a highlight. It's essentially just highlighting the area and then the coastline. So it's just a highlight to make sure the border was easy to see.
Okay, and one other question, just from before, the prior chart said that if you're using fiber, it's future-proof. What does that really mean?
Well, so if you think about fiber, it really is a piece of glass. And so the way that it works, you would send light through that piece of glass, and that's how the information essentially is transferred. So what happens is when you need to upgrade your network in the future, really what you do is you upgrade the electronics that are sending light through the glass. And so if you have that there, you really don't need to alter or adjust the fiber itself. You're really just changing kind of the electronics to get that more capable network.
what they do is they do wave division multiplexing, which means you send a different color of
Different,
light.
okay.
And modulate it by color,
Yep.
right? So,
So it's the data algorithms that you're
so you,
changing,
so you
right?
can jam more channels down one piece of glass.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked at the bottom of it, it talks about the GPON, XGS PON, 5G PON. So those are the kind of architectures that we use to use different wavelengths so that, again, we can avoid having to build more fiber. We're using the same fiber.
I'll offer an example too. I mean, we started this just a couple, 3 years ago. We were offering, 500 megabyte and up to a gig. And then within like 8 or 10 months, we jumped to 2 gig. And then, about a year ago, we went to 5 gig. And, the glass is still the glass. It's a passive network. There are no electronics in between our central office and the customer. So as Tony said, we just changing out equipment on either end. And, as he's mentioned here, we did a first trial of 25 gig, and who knows where it'll go, but it's nice to know that the glass will last us for many years to come.
Right.
Thank you. Can you just talk about your market share from a market share standpoint? When Frontier had our telephones, you basically had 100% market share of Connecticut, I believe, right? And I don't know where you are now, but if you were, how do you define your market and what your take is on the market when you're at 10 million customers?
Sure. Tony, you want me to take that or you want that?
Sure. Yeah.
So, we're vastly a different company than we were when we had, we were SNET and we were strictly the incumbent telephone company, right? Today, there's a lot of competition. There are many other providers out there. So, what we're doing is, we're building this whole network from the ground up. It's from the central office all the way to the home. It's a brand new network for what we consider ourselves a brand new company and with an entirely new mission. And as Tony mentioned earlier, it's all about being the fastest, most reliable broadband provider in the country. So in terms of, penetration rate, we have targets, but understand that over the last couple of years, I mean, we are building rapidly. So if you look at any given time, when we're adding, 15, 20,000 more available homes on a monthly basis, you kind of have to look at once things have sort of settled a little bit. So I tend to look at the statistics, hey, where I've lit something up to provide service in an area for at least, 6 months, how are we doing? And, I think our goal is to hit at least 40 to 50% penetration across the market. We're not quite there yet, but we're better than halfway there. But as, we continue to build, it's been very interesting because, again, I've been here from the start and I've sat down and I've met with every single town across our footprint here as we got started. And, in the very beginning, folks were asking a lot of questions and there was some hesitancy. Now I get calls every day when are you going to build here? Why aren't you building here? How fast can you build here? And so the more we build, the more people understand the value of fiber, and the rates of installations have just gone up exponentially. And so that's where we're headed. It's a good news story for us, and we want to continue to drive deep in the market. One thing that separates, the last thing I'll say is, that separates us from some of the competitors that are new in the market. We don't come into an area and try to cherry pick neighborhoods. We strictly look at it as a goal to build out fiber to every home in Connecticut. Now, like any company, we do have some financial rules and structure around that. So, really my limitations have only to do with that. I don't go into a town. I don't look at demographics. I don't avoid, certain areas for whatever the reason. We go in with an intent to build. And unless we run into a roadblock that takes the cost outside of our guideline, in fact, that's exactly what we are doing. So
we could expect in New Canaan that within our whole zip code, all of the houses would be eligible for your service.
Well,
Even the 4-acre ones and the 10-acre ones.
yeah, I mean, so again, are we going to hit 100% of the homes in New Canaan? No. Would we like to? Absolutely. Typically, we're in the 90% range when we come into a community. And again, it's strictly about cost. We could go into a buried neighborhood. I may hit rock, and it may blow the project way over budget, and we may have to back out. So there are some limitations. There are also areas where we will pass, but we will not necessarily turn up for service until we have an opportunity to meet with a developer or property owner. And that's really when we get into the multi-dwelling, what we call MDU environment. And Tony may talk more about this, but we can't necessarily just say, I have fiber at the curb for this 20-unit apartment building, and think that when the guy on the 10th floor in apartment 3 says, hey, I want service, that our installer can get the fiber into his unit, right? So in those kinds of scenarios, we have to meet with the property owner, get permission to assess the property, and we ultimately do a lot of partnerships where in many cases, at no cost to them, we will come in and rewire the building with fiber. That's one scenario. We've got some other technologies that we can also offer, and there's a lot that goes into that MDU sort of arena. But just understand that if there are 5 or more units in a single building, whether it's residential or commercial, that is going to be considered an MDU for us, and we'll have to approach that differently or as part of a second phase.
Okay, thank you.
But the purple areas on the map, you said that means that the other providers serve those areas, but some areas looks like there's orange and purple both, so there's more than one provider serving those areas. Are these purple areas places you plan to get into, or are you just giving them to the other provider?
So we don't work with other providers to kind of divvy up things. That's we don't take that approach. Like Joe had talked about, we want to make sure that we're offering service where we can, and it really comes down to that cost basis and things like you brought up, where there could be rock or other impediments that make it so that it's harder for us to get there sooner rather than later. So whenever you're looking at this map, think of it as it's the data that's available according to what's called the BDC. It's effectively the FCC's data that shows where different providers are. We're in that kind of reddish area, if you can see the color, as well as the other providers are in kind of that purple bluish area. So we still want to move into the area. That's our goal. It just depends on kind of the pacing and all of those cost and design factors that was brought up, especially around those MDU units.
So you're already in the orangey areas now, or that's where you're planning to go into?
That's the service area for our fiber services, yes.
And then you plan to expand to the white and purple as financial, as is financially feasible. Okay.
Exactly. Our goal is to reach as many locations as we can with fiber.
But they're offering it. That doesn't mean that they have 100% of the.
Yeah,
homes
that's
here.
available. I'm just saying, so the residents in purple, I was just trying to figure out if they're going to get it available, but you're not committing to the people in purple. You're saying it depends on the finances about whether you offer to those people. Correct.
Well, yeah, our first goal is always to see if it's possible to plan out if we can sooner, rather than later. But that's definitely the goal. We want to really blanket the area with fiber coverage.
Yeah, I mean, it's on a personal note, in this conversation, I reached out to these folks. I live in a 16-unit cooperative here in town. And I asked them if they could come. The fiber goes right in front of our road on Elm Street. And 7 or 8 folks showed up to do the study from all different aspects of could they wire us and come up with a plan. A couple weeks to get their proposal, but they were very responsive. I expected 1 or 2 guys to show up. 7 of them showed up, looking all over the place. So very thorough. Some of them were guys that would put wire underground. Some were the guys that got it off the pole. They all had different functions, but we'll wait and see. But it's still, we might fall into that where it doesn't make economic sense for them to do it or to do the whole complex, but more to come on that. But
Yeah.
a great team and a good showing on your part.
I'm just interested because some of these neighborhoods are single family homes. So I was just wondering why they haven't been laid fiber yet.
It could just be timing. I'm showing right now, I've passed just under 6,000 homes. I've got another 630 or so. I'm sorry, let me take that back. There's just under another 500 that are scheduled on our schedule for this year to add to that. So we're, it's definitely a work in progress, and we're hoping, we're going to go from building out that general area to then shifting more focus on the MDUs. Just to really quickly touch on, what your experience there real quick. The way that works is we've got a team that will look at the inside of the building, of course, to figure out, and they specialize in how to rewire the building. Another team that's going to figure out how to get the fiber to the door. We take, both of those assessments, we put the cost together. Obviously, it needs to fit our model. If it does, we go back to the property owner and we present a plan and say, this is what it's going to look like, how we expect to do it, and ultimately ask for permission to proceed. And if they agree with our plan and they sign off on permission to proceed, we will build it. But sometimes they don't like that plan. And sometimes we can make modifications. We've got some new technologies that we've been trialing with a lot of success called Invisalite. I won't get too much into the detail on that, but it's a different way to run fiber inside an existing building that is very unobtrusive. And it's practically invisible, if you will, which is why it got that name. But anyway, that's sort of that second phase, which we are actively in right now as well.
When you say you're in 6,000 homes, that means you go buy 6,000 homes, or you actually have installed it up to into the house?
I have made the service available to just under 6,000 homes.
Okay, so I live on Main Street, and I don't know whether it goes up and down our street, but I presume it does, being it's Main Street. And so I would be one of the 6,000, but I wouldn't be one of your customers yet, right?
Correct.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, there is a little bit of a challenge when we get into main streets in general, because they're typically completely fed from our underground manhole structure, and oftentimes they're lined with MDUs, as I talked about. So there's a lot of block and tackle when we get to main streets to go and talk to each property owner and work through that process that I described earlier.
He's at the other end of Main Street.
Yeah, I'm not in the buried wire end.
Okay.
But in general,
Yeah.
what I think they tell you is they're passing by your house
Right.
most probably. Call them up and they'll send the team out to see if they can wire you up.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
But on the other side of the spectrum, is it cost effective for you to be reaching out to the single family homes that are on really large lots? Because then you have to pull it right off of a pole bury it under maybe 2-4 acres for just one house? I mean, do those numbers work for you too?
They typically do, especially in the aerial. Really, the cost challenges mostly come when we get to the buried, but let me be clear, we are doing a lot of buried work. There are many crews across the state working in that environment. Now, one positive is the first thing we'll look at in a buried subdivision, if it was built mid-90s forward, there's a very high likelihood that we have conduit in the ground. And so other than just some light digging to kind of connect ends, we've got a path. So those work out really well. If it's older than that, then we're coming in with very, like, what we consider minimally invasive equipment. We will bore or missile. We don't come in with the backhoe and just start open trenching everywhere. We will make small pits and missile or bore from one location to another and pull back a conduit. We're doing an awful lot of that as well. It's when you're in that buried environment and it's really spread out, or you start running into a lot of rock, that things start to get dicey.
Feeding your history as SNET, do you own a lot of poles in town, and do you ever just use those poles as opposed to the burying and boring?
We are 50% owner of 800,000 poles across Connecticut. And whether it's Eversource or UI's name on a pole or our name on a pole, we still own 50-50 if we're attached to it. So the name on the pole really just refers to the custodian, which think of it as the person who maintains the pole. But in terms of ownership, yeah, we are joint owner of all the poles that we're attached to, and that is certainly our primary preference for placing fiber, because we can do it cost effectively and relatively quickly.
Which might be the way they do the more
Yeah.
big properties rather than.
One of the things that we're concerned about in town is reliability of both the power services as well as the information and communication services. And so we're looking at trying to get a lot more of the wires buried, because our problem seems to be trees and wires in the trees. More than anything else, it generates the problem. So your willingness to take a look at burying the stuff is quite attractive, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, let's table that for another discussion, because we could probably spend the whole evening talking about that subject.
I'm sure. At least
Yeah.
we're talking about it now. Nobody wanted to talk about it last year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Do you all service the schools in New Canaan at this time? It looked like those are some of the areas that don't look like they're serviced. Do you all plan to provide service to the schools?
I mean, as part of this build, if we go past the school, we will make sure there is fiber there. But the reality is most schools already have fiber from other programs. So that's typically the case. But we certainly, anything we pass, we essentially plan fiber for, either, immediately or in the future.
here's a dumb question, but are you and Optimum the only fiber offerers in 06840?
Tony, I don't know if you know that. I'm not.
Yeah, I wouldn't know that off the top of my head, but we can to look into that. There is data available, through the FCC that shows kind of who's providing within it, but I don't know that off the top of my head.
Because all the other names, every time I try and call them, my zip code doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's
Yeah.
just Optimum and Frontier.
Yeah, I think it's just the two of you. So you guys are a very welcome entry into the fray here. So let's keep going.
Yeah.
So we've kind of gone through this. I wanted to touch on our, affordability. We want to make sure, obviously, that whenever we're providing service, it's actually affordable. It's not going to be outrageous, and you can get a good, reliable service, whether you want to get the 1 gig service, or if there are folks who want to have a kind of a lower speed but more affordable option, we have that available. So the 1 gig service at $64.99, and then the 200 over 200, so symmetrical, all these are symmetrical, for $29.99. So we have options available for everyone. Make sure that they can get service, get that reliable fiber-based internet. So that's what we really want to focus on, and we're very proud of our pricing. We find it to be very competitive, especially with other, compared to other fiber providers.
So on that 64.99 one, the value added services, what does that mean? You're including the YouTube TV?
Those are things that can come with the service. So if you wish to have YouTube TV, you can kind of bundle it with it. So it doesn't come, with the actual $64.99.
Yeah, we have a partnership with YouTube TV. So like Tony said, we can bundle it on the bill. I think they give you a discount for the first year. But what we find is many folks are, they come to us saying, hey, I'm paying over $200 a month for my, cable TV, phone, internet package. And so they look at a product like this, they can bundle it with YouTube. YouTube runs somewhere around $70, $74 a month, put the two together, and they have a pretty robust package and they're saving quite a bit of money. But there are a lot of other people that just say, hey, I already pay for Netflix. I have Hulu, I have Amazon Prime. I'm good with that. But YouTube is nice because it does include all the local channels. And so we see a lot of people really go to that because it also looks very much and performs very much like a traditional cable TV type service.
Just out of curiosity, what does whole home Wi-Fi mean?
So our Wi-Fi packages come couple things. Installation's free, and it comes with a Wi-Fi, which is an Eero device, which is one of the best Wi-Fi devices on the market. If you sign up for whole home, I think, if you're in a larger home and you want, really good coverage in every corner of your home or property, you may need or choose to have, 2 or 3 Eeros all meshed. So they can mesh them wirelessly, or if there's good wiring in your home, they can hardwire them as well. But it basically gives you, it's another level of Wi-Fi. The average home, I think a single Eero covers up to 2,000 square feet.
It's a router.
The question I have is these prices are good for a year, is that right?
Yes. So in general, whenever our up-to-date pricing, whenever you sign up for these, so with the auto pay and things like that, it's available for a year's time, typically, depending on if you are signing up for different services, the value-added services, that also comes with different types of time limits.
Yeah.
But you'd have to look into the.
And it's really guaranteed pricing, right? We're not telling you it's $64.99 and in 12 months it jumps to $99.99. We're just saying it's $64.99. We guarantee it won't change for a period of time, but this pricing is national. And so you get the benefit of, all of the competitive markets across the country. So we do find, like, I've seen some of these packages actually go down in the last couple of years.
And that applies to everybody when that happens, not just the new folks that are coming on.
Correct.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, let's keep going.
So that was really the main things we wanted to discuss today. I think we had quite a few questions. Were there any other ones that y'all wanted to touch on?
You
or
bet.
did we?
Yeah. So Joe, you said, did I understand you to say that running from the central office, it's a fiber per home?
So the PON technology is we essentially come out of the central office, what we call feeder cables. They're, mainline runs that get out into the various neighborhoods, if you will. Then we place a hub, and in that hub, there is a passive splitter that will split the fiber signal across 32 waves. So it's, one fiber out of the central office on PON technology, split in a hub, and then dedicated fiber from the hub into every home. One fiber. It's not a 2-fiber circuit like you see in copper. It's a single fiber and 32-to-1 split.
So let's talk about network diversity. We've had problems in town where we've lost basically all of a service provider's service with one single cable break. Do you have route diversity for trunk traffic going into your central office? Or is that only on a single line?
No, on the trunk capacity, we do have diversity, like between central offices. But it's in terms of this network from the central office to your home, there is not diversity. The PON technology is typically, like I mentioned, just a single fiber out, split 32-to-1 dedicated fibers. It's a full PON that feeds that 32, so that's why we can offer this bandwidth. It's not shared, so to speak. But there's not redundancy on that. On a positive note, there is a benefit of fiber. Our restoration times on fiber are quite quick. On average, we're in the, we try to shoot for a 4-hour restoration unless there's something really major. A big benefit of the way fiber is constructed, if you didn't notice, there are coils that we leave no more than like every 1,000 feet that we run, we will leave a maintenance coil. So if someone comes along and accidentally, tears it down, it melts in a fire or anything like that, we have slack that we can pull back on both sides, fuse the fiber back together, and on we go. In the copper world, that doesn't happen. It's, cut, go find a new piece of cable the same size, hang it up in the air, and then start splicing both ends. So
the important part of this is you do have route diversity going into the central office. So we're not looking at one single cable that can cut and take down your whole central office.
Oh, no, not by any means, no.
Okay. So what about distributed switching and meshing? We are talking about, I'm go back, a long time, with the internet and, the whole point, behind the resiliency of the network was to have multiple routes and multiple switches.
Yeah, I'm not in the position to kind of talk about that. I could certainly loop back with you with somebody who can. But I could just tell you that between our central offices, our backbones are all redundant and protected.
Okay, thank you.
No, that's everything you got.
One last question. I think it was yours, Rich. You guys still have a lot of copper wire for telephone service buried in town or in town. What's your plan on that? Because some folks have it, like it, want to have it, keep it.
Yeah.
What's the plan there?
Fair question. At this very moment, there is no active plan that says we're going to go start cutting down copper cables. There are still certain special circuits. There are companies and businesses that still want T1s for whatever reason. And we haven't really started, I think there's been some trials, to be honest with you. Up until very recently, I could tell you we haven't been forcing customers off of copper. I think that tide is already starting to shift. And we sort of half joke here, like we're going to spend 5 years building this network. I hope to spend the next 5 years tearing down the old one. But in reality, until there are no customers left on that copper cable or that, cabinet, that video ready access device that we all see and know and love, those refrigerator on poles that we call, when the customers are not in those devices, I'm going to be glad to decommission them. But we're just not quite there yet, but I certainly can see that day coming.
Yeah, and I think that one thing is definitely the case whenever we talk to new customers that become aware of the capability of, the fiber-based technology is that they want to move to that better capability, more resilient, more protected and capable service. So it's almost happening naturally. These things, this kind of evolution, this shift to the fiber-based internet. So while, like Joe said, there are those that do have it, it is, evolving and kind of reducing significantly and quickly.
One of the issues we have in town is we do have a number of people that are on copper. And the concern that why they want to stay on copper is when the power goes out, the copper still works and the internet doesn't. Now, is that a problem for you guys? Because these people, here's the rumor that's going around New Canaan is that if you give up your copper phone, you'll never be able to get it back again if you're unhappy on the internet. Okay, at least from Frontier, and you guys are the only game in town. And some people even believe that their phones have been cut off on the copper with no notice from Frontier. Just all is good.
Yeah, we wouldn't be doing that without notice. If you hear of something like that, you can certainly direct them to me and we can address that.
Okay.
The question around, everybody, not everyone, but a lot of people sort of think that, okay, my POTS line works even when we lose power. I get it. The thing with fiber is, as I mentioned before, it's a passive network. So in the past, I had to run out with generators during a long duration power outage to back up the batteries at our electronic cabinet sites around town. This network has none of that in the middle. If you have a generator at your house, our central office is backed up with generators, no electricity, it'll still continue to work. Now, as far as the POTS or the voice portion of it, we do offer a 8-hour battery backup that you can add to any package. It's not very expensive. And it has batteries that you can change out yourself. So in the event that, there's a long duration power outage, you literally could just swap the batteries and your phone will continue to work on the voice over IP.
Well, we like Twisted Pair and dial tone.
Understood, but I also tell people that it's a technology that unfortunately is just past its time, right? And so, as I mentioned, you may not be forced off of it, but I also wouldn't be surprised in the near future if you get a letter that says we're moving on from that technology, and you can either choose to move over to the new technology or find an alternative provider, but.
Well, if you have a solution to the loss of power thing, which it sounds like you do, I think that's terrific.
Yeah, we absolutely do. We know it's important to a lot of people.
Can you run down that again? So the fiber comes into my home, you guys install some sort of a router in my home, which I plug into the wall, and that gives me the Wi-Fi to talk on my phone via that to get internet.
It's a UPS.
And then you guys would offer a different one that has batteries that would go in it, just whatever that means.
So fiber comes into we call an ONT. It's an optical network terminal, and that converts the optical light into an electrical signal. Then typically right next to that ONT is where we place an Eero device, or the Wi-Fi, and that's hardwired from the ONT to that first Eero anyway. And then there's a port off the ONT for VoIP. So if you want or order VoIP from us, that'll come right off that jack and go to whatever phone you want. If you wanted battery backup, it goes through a separate device that has, I think, 12 D-cell batteries in it. And then from there goes into your phone line. Again, I apologize because that's sort of like not my expertise, but that's generally how that is set up. I hope that answered your question.
I think so.
Anybody else have any questions? This has been a great presentation, I think. I've
This
learned
is
a
very
lot.
helpful.
Nice
I've
job.
learned a lot.
This is might be a very dumb question, which shows my ignorance. So do you all use small cells, or do you have contracts with AT&T or Verizon, or do you all have your own small cells? How do you all get the fiber signals?
No. So a small cell is more of a wireless service. So it's going to be AT&T, Verizon. If you think of your cell phone, it would be to a cell tower. This is wired, so it would just be focused on the cabling. So a small cell is just for that radio, sending kind of waves to a mobile device.
So you all are really getting away from all the wireless and just relying on the fiber.
Correct.
They don't own any wireless.
Don't own any wireless.
No.
That's
Right.
interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is more reliable than wireless. Why?
So wireless technologies can have, various interferences, whether it's foliage on trees, whether it's a storm that might come through. In any circumstance, when you have a wired connection, and particularly an optical wired connection, it doesn't have interference, electrical interference. It doesn't get disturbed by moisture like electrical signals do. So that's why fiber's just always been the most reliable medium technology out there.
That's unbelievable. I mean, so you actually, like you said, have a fiber for every house going to every, that's,
Yeah,
I kept thinking there had to be some source, so generally, but
We're
it's,
gonna discuss this later.
okay, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
fascinating. Thank you.
Well, you guys, we've taken too much of your time, but I think your presentation has been great. And quite frankly, you guys roaring back into town with something that we don't have today. We don't have competition in internet for one, and we also don't really have competition in optical communication. So I think it's delightful you're back. And so thank you very much for coming in.
Absolutely.
Make sure they send
Oh.
me the
Oh, yeah.
presentation.
Oh,
A
yeah.
reminder, Tony, the slides you guys put up, if you could email them to Bob and myself, because we need to,
Absolutely.
this tape and those slides together to put on the town's website.
Yeah, all of our committee meetings are all public and everything in them has to be remain public. So
Absolutely.
Thank
I'll
you.
send those
I
over.
should have told you that to begin with, right?
Yeah.
You did, yeah.
Yeah. that's,
We did. I
um,
talked
All
to them.
confidential info.
I'll-
Oh, well,
I'll-
thank you very much. It's delightful to have you working here.
I'll throw in my shameless plug too. Anyone here really want to find out whether your particular address is eligible, you have my email. Just shoot me an email and I'll get back to you and let you know what's available for your service.
Thank you very much. Can we get the contact information for both of you folks?
Yeah,
Because we may
I'll-
have some other questions we'd like to follow up with, and I'd love to be able to call somebody when I get a call that says their copper wire was cut off.
Absolutely. We'll send that with all the information.
Yeah, if you'll respond, I guess, to Rich and myself, because we've been on the email thread with you guys. Perfect.
Okay?
Fantastic.
Thank you very much for your
All right.
time. We understand.
Thank
it's-
you.
Thank you so much.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we move on to what is really, this was exciting to me, but what is really exciting? I thought this was gonna,
Thank you, Bob. That was really good.
Just before we move to that, we probably should at least catalog the various contacts we've had. I mean, I think we've all reached for those contact information, but we probably, and we can gather them. It's not that hard. If you can go back
Oh,
with the
you're right.
records, but just having,
Time to get the Rolodex board.
yeah, just where we have for everything
everything
that comes up, we can go to that person, whether it be the water, Frontier, take your pick.
Yeah.
We've had them here. And if it's not them, then it's somebody else.
No, that's a good idea, Hiram. That's a really good idea. Well, now the time that we've all been waiting for at least, what, 6 months, 9 months, whatever.
Last July.
Literally. We're gonna turn it over to Krista and Sven,
Yes.
who are going to give us an update on where we're at.
Yes, it is most exciting, but the cell service study came to be last week. And we met, obviously, there was a lot that went in to prepare and make sure that they were going to cover every single road that we needed them covered. I have the map here, literally every single road. And then we also talked about being what we would call some hot spots in town, for example, at a school pickup or drop off, because then bandwidth becomes an issue, even if you do have coverage. So it was very important that it happened last week because this week the school's out. So Sven actually got to ride along in the car, and I will let him talk about that experience. In terms of what we are receiving, we are getting reams and reams and reams of raw data. We are getting raw data, CSV extracts, everything you want.
Were you able to get to the files?
No, I had to
Sure.
ask you have to ask for permission, I think, and then they will, but he said it's so data intense.
I
It's
tried to
probably,
get through Dropbox, and
Yeah.
all Dropbox wanted was money.
Well, it will, obviously, we will get
I figure
access to
someone
it.
will figure it out and then we'll all have it.
Right, but in addition to the raw data that I know Karim and Janae and other students are going to be, wading through, I should say. Of course, they are going to do an analysis properly. We did not just pay for the data collection, we're paying for the analysis as well. So they are going to prepare an executive summary and analysis for us that will take, a few weeks. So I let them know that our next meeting obviously will be middle of July. And I'm hopeful that by that time we'll have, parts of the summary to share with the commission and with the public. And it's all really exciting. They thought it was a very thorough capture, I should say. So Sven, tell us what it was like to ride
Did you get, did
in
you
the
get car seat?
vehicle.
No, I did not get car sick at first. These are, this is Tashi, the driver, okay? And Bobby, who we've always talked to, okay? And so what's going on here? So this cell phone is the route that Tashi's driving, okay? These 4 cell phones down here, one for each provider, right? These are the ones that are doing data, which is why they're hooked up to the air conditioning and why they told me to wear a coat, because it was gonna be cold.
Because the phones overheat.
Because the phones overheat.
Right.
So these phones are doing the data and, the data stream and capacity checks as we go. So you see that, can I get really in? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's dropping breadcrumbs, as we do the drive. Right, and capturing the data. So all that data then goes into a comma separated variable file and, based on the location, what's going on. And I can't really zoom in here.
Is that the site, is that
Yeah,
the, is that
okay.
the cemetery?
What you'll see up here says it's running at 5G and we've got 100%, maximum signal, probably because we were parked underneath the water tower to upload the data. So the deal was we would drive and then we would stop and then they would upload the data, right? And there was an analyst in Denver who was basically looking at it semi-real time and then told us, okay, the data is valid, go on and do more. Or if it wasn't, that we would have to go back and
wow.
and grab more stuff. Let's see. So what Bobby has on his lap, he has a clipboard, and there's 4 phones, one for each of the providers. And what he's gathering here, and can we see it at all? Yeah, you can see it's basically the same route, right? It's dropping, breadcrumbs as we go. And it's measuring signal strength, and it's setting up and tearing down voice calls really fast. So that's the other set of data that we're gonna get on these. So anyway, as you can see, there were a lot of USB cables.
How'd they get enough power to all these things? Do
well-
they carry a 12-volt with them or something, or?
Cars running.
Well, there's a big block back here. See this red thing?
Yeah,
Okay, so there's a block, there's a battery block back in there. They're pulling 120 watts out of what we used to call the cigarette lighter,
oh, is that right?
right? And then there's backups in the back seat with me I'm sitting behind Tashi. Behind Bobby, there's a whole bunch of stuff on the floor in the way of backup equipment.
Nice.
So
Nice.
anyway, that's what we did. And that's how we got the data. And
It took 2 full days,
yeah, it took them 2
2
days.
full days to drive the 125
These guys
miles.
are really,
Thorough.
these guys did Ohio.
Trying to make the phone stuff automatically keep trying to make calls every breadcrumb, basically.
As fast as it can nail them out, establish them and get them back.
Well, that's why we upgraded,
were
remember,
doing
to the
about
Pro,
25.
so that it was like rapid succession versus the light version that they wanted, which would have been, I think, every point something second, this is as fast as possible to capture, so.
So anyway, so that was
Great.
what I saw. We did get the schools. we drove the high school and, you know, it was sort of like, you know, it wasn't, you know, completely jammed. We went through Saks as everything was getting out. That was pretty much jammed. We were up at, turned around, got out of that parking lot, went up to South School. You know, while they were loading buses on the far side, we did the near side, the Farm Road side.
Good.
And then we shot up real quick up to West Road and ran down the car line with all the moms, you know, who are ready for pickup there.
Did you wait in the car line?
We did not, we passed everybody in the car line, like
Did you see the car line? Now you know what I'm talking about?
everybody's on cell phone. There
Everybody.
wasn't a car that didn't have somebody on cell phone.
Yeah.
So we got through that and that was pretty cool and, you know, that's,
Good.
anything else?
And he said
wanna
that
ask?
they hit east as well. So you did
Yeah, they were
west,
gonna
south,
do east
east.
on, yeah, they were
the
gonna
high
do east
school.
on Wednesday.
Yeah,
So,
Bobby
We're-
said they did, so.
Were you with them when we went to any place like North Wilton Road or anything like that?
no, basically.
Or Trinity Pass or?
No, basically, we went from downtown, you know, basically, across Summer Street and Locust and stuff like that. We're working, you know, to their map, you know.
Sure.
not
And we
to-
all agreed that was the right map.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, no, we did. We had a call about the
Yeah.
map,
We
you
had
know,
a
and we
call about the
wanted,
map.
you know, and,
the map.
you know, I spent about maybe an hour and a half with them, you know.
Mhm.
And it was just, you know, basically was to be with them when we did the schools on, you know, Farm and South,
Nice,
so,
You
good.
weren't with
and
them?
West.
You weren't with them when they got lost in the south, in the southeast corner of the
I
town?
don't think they can
In
get
the-
lost.
in
These
what-
guys
what
are
The
you
pretty-
call-
spaghetti streets,
In
as
what,
we
yeah,
call them.
spaghetti streets or what you call the lost district as opposed to what really the
Maze.
lost district.
Well,
So-
we are very excited to get all that. So I think the next step is after we, you know, go through this data and have the executive summary that there are some helpers. Karim obviously is going to spearhead the data dive, shall we call it. And then we have 2 college students this summer that can assist him. And then we may be able to roll this into a formal program at the high school.
Right, I talked to Dr. Lutzy about
Yeah.
it. And he said, put together a proposal and send it. I said, who would go to? And he said, just send it to me directly. And so we want to send him Karim's, you know, his resume and what the thought is. And he's really curious. What do you think you can really do with this?
Perfect. And the computer science AP teacher said, sent her any description of programs. She was very interested in
Oh,
getting
terrific.
people
So
involved.
you
too.
chatted with her?
Mhm, yeah.
Oh,
The
good.
summer just doesn't work. She
Mhm.
couldn't help over the summer, but she's like during the year, if you need something, she
Yeah.
definitely think there'd be students who'd be interested. in
Oh, that
doing
would be
it.
good. I think this is great training for them.
It is, that's what,
Right?
these 2 college kids are like, it's great
Exactly.
experience.
If nothing else, it would be a terrific project for them to work on it, you know, for one of the projects during their class.
Yeah, I think it's great.
And so we still have the two rising sophomores are
College
still
students.
interested. They didn't take off and
No,
go
they're well
someplace.
into it. They actually contacted me 2 days ago, say, when, they haven't heard from Kareem yet, so waiting to hear. get
Okay,
the
well,
update.
I've talked to Cheryl, Cheryl Jones.
Yeah.
A couple times,
Oh, perfect,
and
okay.
she knows that you're gonna get her
Yeah,
get her
yeah, that's-
stuff,
yeah.
and she's ready, she's glad to help on
Oh,
whatever.
perfect,
I said,
okay.
we got the 2 guys we want,
Yeah.
right? But they need to sign some stuff
Okay.
for insurance and stuff in
Perfect,
case they
okay.
get hurt doing
They're both
this.
18 and 19-year-olds. I guess they signed themselves. so
Yeah,
that's-
terrific.
that's okay.
Terrific. So
Awesome.
she's still looking for a call. from
Okay, I'll
you
call
when
her,
you're
perfect.
ready to do that. Do
And
you
this-
have, when's the schedule? When are we gonna get what?
So we, like I said, the raw data is here. I
We
think
can't
it
get
would.
to it, but it's here.
Well, it's in Dropbox. It has been presented. And I'm, you know, I will get access to it, but I'm kind of looking to Karim to
Sure.
really dive into it. And then, as I had mentioned, the executive summary, they think will come in the next like 2 weeks. So when it does, I'll share it obviously with the commission. And then we can decide if we want more information and have questions, I imagine. And then hopefully we can, you know, present some part of it at our meeting next month.
Right.
Has anyone heard the update on the other cell tower on Ponus Ridge? I mean,
do.
that lawsuit.
I do. We'll talk about it a little later.
Oh, okay. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
I know some of the stuff. I'm probably a couple weeks old on what I know about it, but I'll share that with you.
So that's all I have.
But at the end of the day, the data and the analysis and the summary is really just going to say, this is what the data shows. And it'll be interesting to contrast it with what's generally been understood it to be.
Right.
But the interpretation of what we do about it, or what the options are, that's obviously, that's a
That's
more
something
complicated
else.
step, but really this is what the data shows. Maybe there's some things that are still vague, but it's sort of like, this is the groundwork.
This
for
is
the
a
next
starting
step.
point, I
Yeah.
think,
Well,
to figure out
and
now.
what I see is probably a natural next step beyond that, and before we get to solutions, is challenging the carriers, because the maps that they have provided to the CT Siting Council are abysmal in my mind. So I would like to see our town apply a little pressure and say, this is actually what's happening in our town,
Yeah.
and you need to make sure the service matches this, not the maps you've just, projected. I think that will be an interesting exchange.
The only other thing I'd add about the drive study is, obviously it doesn't go down everybody's driveway because we're
Correct.
not trespassing.
Well, and that's the other thing we had talked about, right? That we could push out like a little bit of a, citizen education campaign. Maybe it's in the First Selectman's newsletter, or it's on the website, that people will be able to download the Ookla app on their phones.
Yeah,
And
run their own.
run it in their house.
Run their own studies for data and voice,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
Based
so
on
they
their
can
own.
add to the maps that we have.
Send us your data.
Yeah,
How
so
do-
that should be another piece.
How do they do that if you're on your Wi-Fi at home? Because you're trying to get the cell.
Turn the
tower.
Wi-Fi
Turn the
off.
Wi-Fi.
So it's simply, so you-
When you
That's a
go over
step
there, you
to
do a
tell
little
them. I
slider,
got it.
Wi-Fi off.
just something to make sure people do.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So that's something maybe we should talk to the First Selectman about, and how, we should be
That'll do for wireless, yeah.
educating people,
But people run the Ookla app also and check their Wi-Fi connectivity at the same
Mhm.
time.
Right.
Right,
That's pretty cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I've done that with mine, and
Yeah.
I have the same thing. I get 600 download and
Yeah.
30 upload.
Mhm.
So it's not symmetric.
Yeah,
like those guys were
absolutely.
talking about.
Absolutely. Anything else on the drive-by study we ought to talk about? Why don't we go to you, Sven? We tried to call, or,
think you've got it.
Corinne, Hiram, called Karim, and Karim is unavailable. So,
Okay.
so I will catch you up a little bit. Why don't you go first?
So I sent this to you electronically, but I put it in front of you in a hard copy. So figuring that
Thank you.
you guys don't have, like town laptops anymore, so.
Right, you're up.
Here we go. So what was the point of this? I first dumped this out to our friends in February, and sort of updated it and asked for some help. And so what happens, how do you get emergency communication when we've had generalized natural disasters, or maybe it's just a localized disaster with a tree down in front of your house, who knows, right? So we were talking about 911. How do I get to New Canaan's 911 dispatch center, right? And so here are the options. So it's cell phone, right?
Mhm.
So maybe you don't have cell phone. Well, do you have a landline?
Mhm.
They still exist. Wi-Fi calling, okay? That's where we were talking before, Janae, right?
Right.
I'm on my Wi-Fi, can I, use my phone in Wi-Fi mode, to do what they call voice over IP, but same thing, right? Yes. You can also use your cell phone and Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi to do text to 911. Why did that come about? It would seem, difficult. Well, it came about because there are people who are in situations where they need to contact 911, but don't want to make any noise. Tipping off predators to their location. There's some stuff out there right now. So kind of out on the edge of technology. There are a bunch of satellite providers who have gizmos that connect to your satellite, connect your cell phone over Bluetooth to a satellite. If you do a 911, okay, basically all it says is, I'm in trouble, right? And here's my GPS location, and it goes to a provider's, right, emergency dispatch center, and they use the GPS to forward that information. I'm in trouble, and here's my GPS location to the nearest emergency dispatch center. So is it better than nothing? The ratio of something to nothing is infinite. So yes, it's worth doing. You know, I got a lot of hiker friends and a lot of them carry spots or little gizmos like that. You press the panic button and that's what happens. Okay. There are people who do have satellite communications. A lot of these little gizmos that you can carry around are battery powered, so long as you've got, you know, a sky view. Okay, you can do a text. And you can do a text, if you do a text to 911, it ends up in a dispatch center. So it's pretty much used, a provider's dispatch center, so it's pretty much useless. However, you know, you can text your mom and say, call the cops, I need help and I'm here. So what have you got? Where are you located? You know, and that kind of text will make it through, provided your mom's there to help you. Or somebody else like that. We talked, I've got an email here. You know, I was talking to Andrew down at the police station, you know, about what we were gonna do, and he sent me an email today. And where'd it go? So this is from Assistant Deputy Chief Andrew Welsh. What I'd said is, you know, if we have, that's in the bottom here, if we had a 10-digit number, you know, that was an emergency dispatch number that we could get to, then any of these texts or voicemails or voice connections over satellite phones could end up at that number, right? And you would have, you know, contact, text or voice to our New Canaan Dispatch Center. So here's what Andrew said today. As an update to your inquiry, I'm awaiting a response from the Division of Statewide Emergency Telecommunications in regard to the capabilities of our local 911 PSAP, PSAP, to accept satellite calls and texts. In-house, we are not aware of any 7-digit number, that'd be a 594 number, right? That is compatible with the software as assigned by the state. When there is a network outage, we historically do use a landline as a backup number, 203-966-5046, when we are up and running at our South Avenue location. Okay, so that's the Emergency Operations Center, EOC. You've heard, some of you have heard him talk about that, right? This number does not connect to the 911 software and will not receive text messages. We are unable to get that line set up here at our temporary location. Oh, we are not able to get that line set up here at our temporary location regardless. In the event of an outage, we would need to find an alternate solution with a cellular number or rerouting 911 out of town. When I hear back from DSET, Division of Statewide Emergency Telecommunication, I will get their information to you promptly. Hopefully the state will assist the agencies in updating the system to accommodate the ever-growing satellite communications technologies. And I said, yeah, you know, basically if you can tweak, you know, the state, you know, to move along forward, you know, into satellite communication technology, I think it'd be a big help for all of us. I mean, we've seen Apple's announcement that the iPhone 1X series is going to have, you know, a satellite text capability. Okay, no voice, text. But, you know, the rest of that we really don't know, right? So we'll see what happens.
They're working on this 10-digit emergency number to the dispatch center though?
Well, you know, that was my request, you know, and, you know.
Seems very logical.
Since it seems to be
I think you said you can't do it.
involving the state, you know, there's, you know, probably some lead time involved in making that happen.
Okay.
That's basically what he
Like, we
said.
put pressure on them somehow? I
We
mean,
might
that
still be
seems like a,
residents.
yeah. very still
The other stuff I threw in here was just a couple of, like hyperlinks. If you have the electronic copy, or, I guess you can type, umpty two characters worth of stuff in. But it was basically on CNET home slash internet and, what to do if you have an outage and how to keep your internet going without power. So that's the other part here was the electric power backup for communication. Janae, I said we would talk about this.
Mhm.
So how do you keep your power in your home going?
Yeah.
When the lines are sitting in the road? Well, fixed solar, battery and inverter, you're transferred off, you're good. Fixed, a lot of folks have got fixed backup generators, diesel, propane, natural gas, automatic transfer switches, all ready to go. You're golden. Folks with portable diesel and gas generators, hopefully they're doing this safely and not backfeeding the grid. And you can power all or part of your home from a small portable generator. The one that came up that I missed the first shot was using your EV in a reverse charging mode to dump your battery through the inverter and power your house. And if you have a dual motor machine, you can, don't start your car in the garage, but you can possibly pull this off, Then we talked about UPS, uninterruptible power supply. Basically, it's a box and you plug it into the wall. And while it's got 110, it keeps the battery charged. And when the 110 volts AC goes away, the output of that then has an inverter and will drive, 110 volts into whatever you've got it plugged into. So what do you want to have plugged into it? You need to have your router into it, right? You want to have the cable box that you have plugged into it, and probably a laptop, and you can also plug your phone charger into it. So all that's good stuff.
But that would get you the phone. You just plug it in, you plug the cable box and the router in, then you'll have internet,
Yes.
right? And
Do
therefore
you
you'll
need the
have your
cable
phone.
box or just the router?
Yeah, you do need, you need the box that goes from the raw cable, from the wire. Because it just comes in as a wire, right?
Yeah.
You gotta have something to turn that into a signal that goes into your router. So that your router can then shoot it out over the air, and then you've got Wi-Fi around the house.
Doesn't have to be a cable box, though, so you can buy the boxes.
Yeah, whatever, yeah. Whatever you've got in order to hook up to the wire that comes into your house, or the fiber in this case, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you did this Frontier stuff, you wouldn't have a box. You just have the router at the end of their
He'd
cable. right?
do this for you,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
That's
He
what
was
he would
gonna
do
sell
for
you, they would, rent or sell you a box to do
Right.
this.
yeah, the same thing as you're seeing
Yeah.
here.
You can buy UPSs, from Amazon, pretty
Yeah, I don't know how much. they are.
darn cheap.
How long does it last, one of these things? I mean,
It
that.
depends upon how much money you spend.
And then
So
how much,
you're-
and
say
how
you're-
much you use it.
Well,
Watt
no,
hours per dollar is what you're,
Yeah.
watt hours per dollar.
just ballpark, if you spend $100 on one of these
Oh,
things.
$100, keep it going for a day.
Okay,
We used to have these all over our office,
Yeah.
right? And that's.
Every time the
what's
power
good.
went out, there, well,
Right,
you
they
could hear
kick in.
alarms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They kick in, it worked well.
What else is there out there? You can keep your cell phone or your SATCOM adapter, charged off of, we've all got lithium ion power banks, I think. Now everybody's got one kicking around someplace, right? And last but not least was somebody mentioned to me, don't forget you can get a solar panel that you can put out in the yard. This doesn't work while it's raining, right? But you can get a solar panel that'll charge your little power box at the same time that you're using that to dump power in and get your cell phone and stuff up and running. But
How much solar cell do you need in area to actually be of practical use? In that use?
The ones that I've seen, you know, out and actually being used,
Mhm.
you know, for this purpose are, you know, greater than 2 feet by 1 foot.
Yeah, that's what yeah.
That's
So-
not very big.
2 square feet. You know,
But,
so,
and how long does it take to charge your cell phone? 6 hours?
you know, freaking forever.
Yeah, forever, right? I mean, they sell these for backpacking, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I looked at it to see, because you carry it in your backpack, you know, and then you get where you're doing, you just leave it there. Like, yeah, you can wear it as a hat.
No,
whatever.
you just you flop it
You
over the
flop it
back
over
of your
the back.
backpack.
And
Hold it
then-
up straight,
And then you gotta walk north.
you know, so.
Slow process.
Something that you may want to add to the 911 communication options, though, are security systems. Like they have the fire and the police. But that's hardwired, and I'm actually curious, like, I wonder how many people in town have security systems. And secondly, when we've ever had a security system installed, they mandate that we have a landline.
You have a landline.
Yes.
They do have a workaround for internet. I've got it on my security system. And I think it doesn't work actually at this point, but I think it is a workable solution. I don't know what it is.
Right.
But when we cut the copper, they said, you gotta call us and we'll come out and we'll do whatever and we'll make it work. And so they did that.
But you don't think it works?
Well, I don't think it works because I think when we went to Optimum the other day and we cut our bill in half, including getting rid of one phone number. I think it was that phone number.
Unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all of them, because Standard requires it, Tyrell, and I mean, and I've been in 3 different houses in New Canaan, and I wanna like never have a landline, and they insist upon it,
Yeah.
but I do forget, I mean, if you're fleeing your house, you're not gonna maybe stick around, but you know, you can press it and panic and, right?
That's your emergency call button.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that.
And I mean, what percentage? I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe
percentage.
50% of people, 70% of people have an alarm system,
Yeah,
to me, that's
That's a
the
good one. We should put
easiest.
that in there, actually. Yeah.
Written down. We'll
I'm
add
gonna
it to the
I'm gonna
list.
go check that panel tonight when I get home and tell the girls about it.
Yeah,
That makes us a good idea.
that's a good idea. Well, now let me ask you a question. What do we do with, I think this is terrific, right? And I would love to have this put somewhere, and we've talked about, we gotta educate the population. This can be the first thing. What should we do?
I think on the website with.
We can put it on the website, but how many people really
Bob's
look at
got a
our stuff on the
suggestion.
website?
You need to send me that piece of paper and I will have the IT department put it on the website as we do with all other handouts.
Well, I'll update it, you know, to
I think
add,
we need to do that, absolutely.
I'll update it to add the home security stuff and to, you know, put in some of the information at the bottom where I said, what are we working on? You know, to
But I
dovetail with what, you know, what Andrew's saying.
It's like, yes, it should definitely go on the website, but you're asking people to go to that. I think in general, just like when we're talking about maybe asking our citizens to participate in an at-home Ookla test, I mean, there should be a little bit of a mini PR push here.
Right.
It should be at the library with physical copies, you know, maybe isn't there like a safety pup or a carbon monoxide day or,
Well, I can
you
talk
know,
to
like
Andy.
you could
One of the things,
dovetail.
one of the other places would be to go to Latin Center. I'll talk to Angie.
Mhm.
And put it in the Sentinel,
Or Ag-
put it on the
sorry, Ag-
New
Exactly,
Canaanite, like. it should
Exactly.
go
Let's
in
get
all of our
a free
local-
page ad in the Sentinel.
Well, it's
And
a
on.
Well,
public service
but-
announcement, you're
but-
not selling goods.
But this is gonna be like one of many things in the future that, but it almost needs, I mean, it should go in the meeting sites and it should be a PR thing, but it also, there should be on the town site, useful education items.
Yeah.
Where this is 911 emergency here. There's gonna be, what happens if your water does this? It's here. You know, as we go through this, there's gonna be a lot of education.
Call the number if you're interested in fiber.
Right.
Cable, go.
Right, like these are the options.
Exactly.
That's why sentence number 2 says, you may want to keep this as a hard copy depending upon your level of preparedness.
No, I know. Look,
I do think that we are, he should pull up a list of things that the whole town would find useful like these. And I actually think we should put pressure on people to get us the state to
Yeah.
give us a town 10-digit
Absolutely.
I mean, that's actually where it gets even to the
And that's
state,
key for
that's
the-
actually state rep, almost state representative.
You need to post what you showed to the committee, that's why I'm requesting.
Oh, yeah, no.
And when you update it, we can provide the
Right.
update to it.
Well, I showed you, I sent that to you.
Oh, you did send it?
Yes, you got it yesterday, last night, around 6 o'clock.
I got the pictures.
I thought I included you when I sent this to everybody.
I got it.
Okay, I'll check again.
Just double check, please. I'm not supposed to participate in the meeting, but it's a.
Yeah, no, this is useful.
It's an administrative point.
No,
Yeah.
no,
You will
absolutely.
get both versions,
sure
the
we-
original and the updated
Right.
is what he's asking
Right.
for send.
But I
So
think
you
this-
update it
I
and
think
send
it-
again.
I think this is a bigger question, and I think one of us should take on thinking this through, all of the different things. Because, we have a notification process within the town that you can sign up
6:19
for or
PM.
not sign up for.
6:19
Right? And
PM
it-
yesterday.
It emails you or it sends you a message that says, oh, the
To you.
wires are down on your street, right? I mean, this could be attached to that.
Yeah.
Right? And it says, oh, God, if it's a wires are down, you may want this, right? And this might be a great way to put it right in the hands of somebody.
Well, we have the emergency, the old Mike Handler emails
Well-
and voicemails. We have
Agree,
emails
yeah.
that we could attach this to.
So when the
right?
tower goes out
Right.
now, we could send it out. saying-
The notification system has gotten much more sophisticated,
Yeah.
and you can decide what you want to be notified about and what you don't, and this could become part of that. And I'm just suggesting it because we're not gonna have time to solve all this now, but I think somebody ought to think this through. And anybody that interests, I'd love to hear about it. I'm glad to talk to Deanna and say, can we make this kind of thing or put a link of this in, to this on the town website in your monthly bulletin? This is something that the utility commission thinks everybody should have.
We can send it out. Is there anything more that you think, other than just trying to keep on top of this? I mean, what more can we do to ensure that people have 911?
Well, the other
Emergency
thing,
dispatch
the other thing
contact.
your other sheet had was the physical satellite things for hiking, et cetera. That actually did this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back to when we had the 911 meeting 4, 5, 6 months ago. And they mentioned about the text 911. And I don't know whether that's really part of the school when they do their safety,
Yes, it
if the
is.
kids know that.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I was very, very impressed with, with what I heard from Andrew and John DeFederico, about the whole situation. Yeah, that's part of school resource officer stuff. It's there.
That's great.
I wasn't sure if I asked my kids if they know that, but it's worth asking my kids.
That's the thing,
It's worth asking my kids if they know it, if they know two texts,
Yeah.
if they know two texts.
Ask them.
Yeah.
And, if the answer comes back, well, maybe.
Yeah, I know, it should be
We'll
ingrained.
see what we can do in order to.
Drive that point
Tweak
home.
Yeah, that's a good,
I mean-
actually, that's great.
I mean, it's just a
Ask them.
repetitive thing. I mean, if they're doing
Yeah.
it, that's great. It's one of these things, every time they do a safety test, they should be
Right.
mentioning that because it's real. That's the that's the one that's
That
on
was
top of
why
everybody's
911 texts were initiated.
Yeah.
Well, that's my only hesitation with creating a 10-digit number, because 911 is so ingrained in all of us that
That's
it's like,
good.
if you're panicking, it's like, wait, what?
Yeah, but this is only for satellite communication.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Okay.
that's if you're,
This, if you're on, if you have a satellite communicator, in order to reach New Canaan Dispatch directly and not through a provider's 911 dispatch center, that's what I was thinking about.
Hmm.
Okay, and you can set it up as a hotkey or something,
That's what I was gonna use programmed
Yeah.
kids phone and program
Yeah.
your phones and say, press this if there's an emergency.
And
Yeah, see,
This is the closer response.
it's really just
NCPD,
useful for
911,
our residents, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's all it's useful for,
That's
because you
all-
only
that's all
want.
it
To
is.
have our
within
local people
this
come
cover.
get you, they're the closest people. So.
That's
Don't
right.
worry about the kids calling, because they're of course texting.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's
I
exactly
mean,
right.
They don't.
Shout out
They
for
When I
calling.
text them, come down for dinner. I mean, don't you worry, they know how to
They
text.
text first,
911.
not second.
Yeah, they never call.
Yeah, they never.
Okay, well,
call.
I think we should move on unless you got something else you
I'm-
want to
I'm
say.
done.
This is great.
This is
Send.
I think we need to come up, I think,
Encapsulation of where we're at.
I think one of us has to take over communications and education, because we got a lot of these things that we're gonna be dealing with, and they're all gonna be different. I think they're all gonna be different.
Well, one of the things I'll do is, I'll go and, talk to Russell.
I
face to
think
face,
that's a great
You know,
idea.
and see what we can do for,
Yep.
emergency management and EOC and, whatever. How do we dovetail with the people who are already doing this?
But I think that's great, and we'll do this as a one-off if nothing else. I mean,
Yeah,
we'll get
we'll
this
find out what happens.
every place we can
Yeah, I
get.
mean, maybe I can start to take a list of like all the things I'd like to see, like PR, like the newspapers, at the library, the things you're talking about. And maybe we just kind of brainstorm a little document.
Yeah.
And then that'll be the template, and I don't know, maybe we
Yeah, we'll-
present it to the Board of Selectmen or something, or ask them, maybe they're already
Yeah,
doing
we'll go
it.
through it in one of the meetings here.
Yeah, I mean, how do they tell citizens to
Right.
pay their taxes? I
Right.
mean, I know everyone knows it's in old April, but I'm sure there have been other times
You bet.
the town has had to get in touch with citizens, and I bet you there's a system in place coming out of the selectmen's office already that we could just kind of latch
Absolutely.
onto, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I'll take a stab at a draft.
Okay. Then, next on the agenda, it will come back to Karim, so I'll do Karim for him. I had a chat with Karim and said, so what are we gonna do with the data? And I said, here are the things that interest me, and I think you guys ought to think of the things that interest you. I really think where we're going to go with this is where we'll be able to perhaps make some inroads is with existing infrastructure. And so, if you take a look at the existing infrastructure we have, I think we need to talk to the owners of it and see whether it is expandable in any way, shape, or form. And so I said, what I said to Karim is, are you really gonna be able to do what you said, which is you're gonna be able to put the coverage map together by company, and then you're gonna be able to model into that. Like, now we wanna put a pole here, right? And he said, absolutely. Now we wanna put more power in this pole. Now I want you to tell me where to put the pole, right? You tell me where are the best poles we're gonna have here, because it's pretty obvious that we're gonna need towers, of some kind, because they're gonna be the base load for cellular service for a long time to come. You can't find anything that doesn't say that, right? From the providers to the non-providers to the technology guys. So we're gonna use them. We may end up taking them down when something else comes along, but there's nothing else that's come along yet. And I will give you the example that, as a matter of fact, the Murrays here brought to our attention, which was the Armory pole. And there's one pole down at the Armory. And apparently Verizon has gotten approval to put a second pole in. And my understanding, by going to the siting council, as advised by our guests, was to find out that pole is supposed to be 142 feet tall, supposed to have 3 antennas on it. But they're supposed to primarily service the Merritt, because they sit right next to the Merritt. But there's supposed to be 2 other spots on the pole, if I understand the document properly. So there is a possibility to put more antennas on there. And so I've got a call into Verizon right now to try and get information. So what do we do with that? I would love to have you guys put an antenna in there. How can we help do this? I know we are not anybody that has any authority in any of this, right? We're just kind of trying to figure out how to we represent customers, right? No, that's true, but that would be a great thing to do. And I think we will have that all over town. We have the same situation in the country club, is they've got a 110-foot pole. They need a taller pole in order to get Verizon on that pole. It's not currently on it. And the country club has turned them down to date because they don't want a taller pole, and it requires more property. And so the current situation of where that pole is on the country club is between the road and hole number 11.
Route 123,
Yeah,
right there.
yeah, on Route 123. So there needs to be a pole probably someplace else, but we can certainly go talk to the country club about that. I mean, my understanding was they turned it down just because they weren't getting enough money for it.
Because I think that's negotiations.
That's a negotiation thing. And I think those happen all over town. I mean, why can't we talk to Keith Ritchie? Maybe a 110-foot pole isn't the right one. We need a 130-foot pole, and we can put some more stuff in there. Because when you think about this, and just thinking about all these problems for a long time, the way that we have made the cell companies think about the towers is you can't go over 110 feet. which means you can't get all 4 cell companies on one tower, which means they have different coverage, which means you need multiple cell phones if you really want coverage all over town, right? I mean, that's what it's driving us to. And so I don't know that the right strategy is to have taller towers, but it certainly is, it creates the question, right? And quite frankly, Karim is saying that he can help us solve this on a computer before we actually have to talk to somebody about it. And I think the data that Krista has gotten put together here is going to provide the fuel for it, if he's able to do it. And the young men that you've put together to do this will do it. So I think this is all just really starting to work on it. Okay, so that is the story of the Armory cell tower. So the Armory cell tower was approved on February 2nd. It has not started yet. As I said, I've got to call into them to find out when they're going to start and to start this conversation. Anything else on that? Nope. Now let's talk about the Ponus Ridge Tower for a minute. On the Ponus Ridge Tower, I did talk to Ray Bugatti from Homeland Power on this right after we got the word that the sewer won, or at least he partially won. And they had not currently decided whether they were going to continue to pursue the tower, or whether they were actually going to look for another private owner to put it on a different piece of property. But they were certainly going to go look at that. He has not called me back since. I did go talk to the sewer, to Mark Bushman, and very pleasant guy. And we had a very nice conversation. But what was communicated to me on that was he believes that what's going to happen is the siting council is going to reconstitute the siting council so that it is appropriate, and then go back and revote. But that likely may not work, because the only thing that happened when he won was that the siting council didn't have the authority to approve it. Right, but it didn't talk to any of the other issues, like the environmental issue and the liability issue, et cetera, that he had brought up. So I believe that for this thing to actually go through, it's going to have to go back and be the new siting council is going to have to look at the whole thing. I don't think they're just going to say, go watch the videos and then we'll take a vote. I don't think that's going to hold up, but it may. Who knows? But that's the state of play as of 2 weeks ago.
So do we imagine the timing is of when they're going to reconstitute the siting council?
I think they already may have done it.
Okay.
Okay, I think they already may have done it. I just don't know.
Okay.
I don't know how to plug into that.
I don't either.
I know how to plug into the siting council, but once it turns into the legal stuff, then you're in a whole different system.
Sure, they're not going to talk to you
Right? No,
Yeah.
I'm sure they're not. I'm sure
Yeah,
they're
I
not.
don't think you can just call and ask them. I'm sure.
No, but I can call Bugatti and I can call Bushman,
Yeah.
right? But I don't want to be a communicator between them.
Yeah.
Right, which is not what I want to do. So that's where the Ponus Ridge one stands. And then there's another one that is just going through the process right now, that there's a small antenna going up on Oronoke and Michigan Avenue on a telephone pole replacement. So it's going to be a steel telephone pole put up that has their antennas on it. And this one doesn't go to the siting council. The rules on this is it goes to the Pura to be approved. And the only people that really get to vote on it are the people can complain who are on either side of the street of the telephone pole. But the town has no standing in this deal, because the pole is owned by the guys we just talked to, probably. And if they do a deal with Verizon, who I believe is also the person on this one, then that deal will be done if Pura approves it.
So right, Penny Corners,
So whose land is that on?
Michigan and Ono, right at the corner, Penny Corners, right?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so.
Is that
Looking at
And
the
whose
map.
land is that? Like, how can they do it without town?
No, but it's the pole is sitting
The
on.
pole's already there.
Exactly. And they're just gonna replace the pole,
Oh,
They have
awesome.
an easement for the pole.
And so quite frankly, I don't think there's any reason anybody
that's
should complain on this.
That's a
but-
less painful way of
But
doing
the
it.
abutters are allowed to ask for a public hearing, and they have not. But it's just.
Is that
going
a
through the
solution in
process.
other areas?
Huh?
Is that a
Well,
solution?
the problem with it is a very short solution. I mean, it doesn't go very far. And why they've chosen that place to put it, I don't know. It was in a different spot. And then the pole owner didn't want them to put it on the pole. So then they moved it to this other pole. So this has been in flight for a while. Okay, but these are ones we would never hear about, right?
So how tall will that ultimate O&M Michigan pole be?
I believe it's going to be the same height as the current pole.
It's just a metal pole with new antennas
It's
on
just a
it.
steel pole instead of a wood pole.
This is, I mean, it's gonna have a very small direct impact.
Right, exactly.
But that's a dead zone area, so it was.
Yeah, but it's probably gonna look down Michigan
Wait.
Avenue and look down Orono, both ways.
And who initiated?
I think Verizon must have. I believe it's Verizon. I'm
But
not-
that could be a decent solution in other dead zones, couldn't it?
Well, it could.
You've seen the 5G cams, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, so.
They're small.
Mhm.
But Krista, this is like what Vermont was talking to you about. It was 50-foot poles, right, that they're looking at putting up in
Because if
Vermont.
it's under 50 feet, you don't have to go before the siting
Yeah.
council, which is new information to me.
Mhm.
You just have to sprint, I mean, the reach, like to your point, is not far, but.
It just
Yeah.
gets done.
But if you've got a dead
Small
street,
distributed
Right,
you
you
know.
got a 40-foot pole, put another steel 10-foot thing on top, or 9-foot.
Okay, so that's my report on stuff I've learned over the last month.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very
that's
interesting. Thank you.
I thought that was pretty fun. Jill is working on getting another industry expert that she believes she'll be able to get for the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay, she apologizes for not coming tonight. And then Hiram, do you want to talk about the POCD?
Sure. I mean, just to follow up on the meeting from last month, again, I had something unexpected come up, but I did see the dialogue and the presentation, which was very thorough. I think, you know, they have those themes that are very broad, that are from the public, that are all very appropriate. I looked at them, thought about them. Given the high level, I'm not quite sure there's really a need for comment on them. They are what they are, and it's what the public has sort of spoken about. The real trick, as I think you probably all are aware, is sort of the next step. I mean, they've got these themes. It's really then sort of the next step as they get clarified in terms of, you know, you sort of have this theme, and, you know, brought this up in the meeting last week, benchmarking where we're at or what other people are doing with that, you know, with that topic, figuring out what our goal is, you know, to that theme, and then the implementation of that, the actual implementation steps on how hard, how difficult, or how pie in the sky it may be.
Yeah.
Some of them are actually quite difficult, but
Yeah.
that's just what it is. Others are, you know, implementable, small impact, but they are the right thing to do. And where we could get involved, and it seems like it makes sense, it seems it's in our purview, is in the dialogue about the research of the benchmark, the research of talking to other towns that have done these type of things, and thinking about, again, working with the city officials, or what the goal is, and then like how to implement. I mean, it's really the same steps that we followed on the cell tower, the same steps we're following on, you know, 911. It's on the water, it's on the undergrounding, it's on the same issues.
I'm burying the wire.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's the exact same thing, but you sort of have the framework or the reference of the POCD and the public to sort of go from there in a, you know, the public has spoken, let's figure out what's implementable, and then the town can do something with that. And
Right.
we can make a recommendation, you know, to the town officials.
Are we
So-
doing benchmarking against competitive towns like the Wiltons and the Dariens?
It's not going on, but I think that the thing about each of these, whether it be EVs or undergrounding or wherever, it's a matter of like, okay, this is what it is. What's other towns in Connecticut? And there's all these Connecticut programs and state and federal programs where towns have been doing it and why they're doing it that can be referenced.
Mhm.
You know, one of the things I got from listening into the undergrounding conversation is that there are cities around the country that have done this.
Right.
And it's very clear that they don't operate under a larger investor-owned utility, but more in a municipal utility, where the rationale, the data, and the history, and the maintenance history of it is all well-defined within a city,
Right.
because they had a
And it's
history.
worth it.
They had a history before and a history afterwards. The same people are there, and they're a wealth of information that we can access.
Mhm.
So I think with all of those steps, and there's probably a dozen in the POCD, it's just a matter of like, well, here are the 12. The POCD will finalize their report, then we can prioritize, or somebody can ask
We
us
can
what,
continue our work.
we can continue our work. But that's what it is. I mean, somewhere we can prioritize it, or we can get guidance from the town officials about what they may want.
Right.
And then sort of work from there. It becomes like year 2 this version of the Utilities Commission and how we move forward.
One of the things, having been on town council when we went through the last P O C D 10 years ago, right?
Mhm.
Is, that we were asked for buy-in on a lot of the issues. So there is, people will be considering this, seriously.
But it's always used, when somebody's asking for money, it's always used as an argument. It's in the P O C D,
Yeah,
page
why are we doing
143,
this?
building sidewalks. We were gonna
Implementation.
build sidewalks. Now you're cutting it out of the budget. Right? And it's something that we can wield as a tool.
Do you think that, so in the last version, and I wasn't in this community, the 2014 P O C D had some very good research and information and goals. And, these are difficult aspects and some of them can't be done in a time frame.
Right.
But at the same time, in year 5 of it, COVID occurred and that clearly interrupted many things. But I'm not quite sure that was the detraction, other than some of these issues are just complicated and actually you require a level of research that I don't know, the town doesn't have the resources
Right.
necessarily for. And these are just ideas that could on their own just sort of be in the PUCD every 10 years, just because these are complicated, not easily defined, not easily solved problems.
Well, that's why we always do studies. We fill up the ring binders and I don't know where they go, but they're somewhere, but we always do studies, Always money for studies.
We have to have the information to make decisions.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you though, I think the POCD, there's a number of things in there that they've never made any traction on, but I can list a half a dozen that it had an impact on what the town did. Sidewalks is a good one, right? Sidewalks is a typical. One of the ones at the time that has not been successful at all is they'll say in there, we ought to strive to have more senior housing. We haven't done anything. We've only rejected all of it.
Yeah.
That's all
Why?
we've done.
I wonder why.
I don't know, but that's even when it was pointed out that this is where we thought we were going to go. But that's just a couple. So I think this is an important thing.
So for next steps on this, what I would suggest is what I'm happy to do is sort of take, again, the themes, break it down into like the 10 thing, sort of narrow it down like these 10 things that come from there. We can get, Sarah and the PUCD to say like, isn't this what you're talking about?
Yeah.
And it's really just sort of preparing because some version of this is going to be finalized. And we just prepare ourselves. And again, it's really just sort of a roadmap of what we've all been thinking about to what we tackle next with this as a reference. And so, next meeting I can say, well, this is what I got out of thinking about this, referencing Sarah and saying, these are the 12 things, let's figure out what we do next.
It's very difficult. I mean, I think the only thing that we do that's harder than that is charter revision.
Right. I think you're right. But this is much more massive than charter revision. Charter revision, you can kind of get your hands around. But this is just the total town.
No, charter revision is fun because we can go after each other, hammer and tongs.
Well, I think that's a good idea. If everybody would be willing to spend some time between now and the first and the next meeting, which I believe is the 20th of July, 18th of July, July 15th. And let's everybody bring in what they think. Take a look at the themes, see what you think we ought to put forward for it. And Hiram, you can pull it together.
Yeah.
But let's have a big discussion. So we don't have a committee doing it, right? That needs to do agendas and stuff. We'll all just do it together in the next meeting where we have a discussion and decide how we want to go forward as a utility commission. I think some of these things are kind of fun. I mean, I think burying the wire thing is great. I think it's easy to say. I think we should get 80% of our wires buried in the next 10 years, or whatever we think is a reasonable thing. And I think power resilience and reliability. I think we can set some targets for that we think we ought to get from how we measure it today to how we measure it. We ought to make improvement in it. And we ought to take a look at it.
How should they feel about 911 options?
Yeah, no, we ought to solve the cellular problem, right? I mean,
I think we got information tonight,
we did.
If we've got, route diversity to the central office, for Frontier, why does one cable cut in Norwalk take out New Canaan?
Right.
Please explain.
Of course, a careful shovel next to the building down on Main Street might take out most of New, isn't that the central office for New Canaan, right? If you get the cable coming into that from wherever that is, that probably gets you.
Yeah, they've done a lot more work.
When is the August meeting? I mean, I just don't have it, the August meeting.
It's on the 20th. I
Okay.
wanted to chat about that.
Because I think, it's interesting because we have the next meeting or two will be fascinating with the data. Want to make sure that we are,
Okay, so we're
Can-
July 16th and August 20th.
20th.
Often we don't need to do
Right,
August
but-
for town
Okay, so
council.
we talked about not doing
We could
August.
make a motion.
No, we could decide we're gonna not do that meeting.
When we put the calendar, we talked about not having it, we just said we
Yeah.
have it. See.
But are we good for July 16th?
I can do July.
I'd like to do July
Yeah,
16th
I'm
because,
here.
I'm here too.
Yeah,
I think August is tough.
I think August will be tough, but I think.
I think so too. Well, we can defer it, but I'm certainly willing to say we don't need to do August. I think we need to do July because I
Think
think
so
we
too.
need to make sure we
Better.
get going on the data and,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, we owe it to the people to make sure that we get the data out.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Let's do July 16th and then we vote about if we need August.
Yes, correct.
Let's see how many people can be here in August, I guess.
Okay.
August, that's.
Okay, well, that was the next one on my list here was the August meeting. Do we want to do the August meeting or not? And I was more just wondering who thinks they can make it to the August meeting. I'm currently planning on not being here.
I
Not
don't
either.
But-
I will be here.
I'll be moving kids into college, so
Okay.
You will or you will?
I will be moving kids into college, so I will not be here, yeah.
Well, I think we've been pretty good at having a lot of meetings. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, we haven't missed any.
Once,
Yeah.
it's July.
No. No, yeah, we started up in July and we're on our July one, we'll put 12 months in a row. So let's consider it next meeting and decide. Okay, and then I've got a pure administrative question, and that is agendas and minutes. Can we agree how we distribute those before the meeting? Or if you want us to distribute them, if everybody can go to the town website and go to our agendas and minutes, they're all there. And
I think that's easiest.
they should all be there by Friday, the day, before the next Tuesday. I'm trying to get the agendas out. This guy does better than I do, but I'm trying to get the agendas filed by Friday, which would give us 4 days, to take a look, to make sure if you're on the agenda, you're on the agenda. That kind of thing. And if everybody can be responsible for getting their own minutes and their agenda, that'll just make everything easy, I think. What do you think, Bob?
Sounds very good.
Okay.
Seriously, it's efficient.
Yeah, no, I think it is. I think it is.
I think it's
too.
easy to go to the website and just look at the agenda.
I'm confused on that. And I love what you did tonight, which was to send everybody what you wanted to talk about, in your piece. Right? And when we're bringing people in, when we're bringing people in like you did it just right, is how do we make sure they can show their slides, right? And then we got to follow up and get the slides to come in. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn? Everybody.
Goes to 1, 2, all those in favor.
Who made the motion?
Byron,
Janae.
Janae was second.
Janae second.
Janae.
All in favor?
Janae.
Aye, okay. Turn it off.